Colleagues, we're back to the Davis-Sterling Common Interest Development Act, which I think needs another but rather simple tweak. For the board elections, if only the same number of candidates apply as the amount of open seats during the filing period, then the nominees are considered elected by acclamation. I currently reside in two CIDs, homeowners associations, one up here and one down in Orange County. And we have difficulty convincing people to come and run for our boards. So I can understand why you'd only have as many candidates as open positions. So why vote on a single slate? SB 754 saves on mailing and administrative costs. It's done for numerous municipalities. School districts are mentioned in your staff report. One community in my district has had 6 uncontested elections for 3 homeowners associations in the last 2 years. With 12,500 senior adult units, that's $60,000 in costs. And for a community living on retirement savings. I have to confess that I stole this bill from Senator Roth. He ran it last year, had a friend in Laguna Woods who's no longer there, but we wanted to pick it up again. That was Senate Bill 1128. And it went through the legislature with only 1 no vote. Yet it was vetoed by Governor Brown because he believed this expensive and unnecessary procedure should be resolved by the members of that specific community. But you have to make the change in the Davis-Sterling Common Interest Development Act. So why make such a excuse me, why make such a small ministerial change optional? To hold an election is easy. Have more candidates than available positions. If you don't like the fact there's just a single slate, then please apply and run and get more than the openings, so then you do have an election. So with that, I think that's an easy solution if you're concerned about not having to vote on a single slate, which is sort of redundant. So I want to encourage homeowners that live in homeowners associations to run. But colleagues, let's send SB 754 to our new governor, and let's give the 50,000 impacted communities a budget-saving opportunity they will be thankful for. I respectfully request an aye vote, and I have witnesses present.
And there are 3 witnesses or 2?
1, 2, 3.
Okay, so, oh, okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, go for it.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members. Jeff Parker, I'm the new CEO of Laguna Woods Village. It's a common interest development, as indicated, of 12,500 homes and 18,000 residents. We're the sponsor of SB 754. Our members live on modest incomes, very fixed incomes in many cases, and we strive to be frugal and financially responsible. We do everything that we can to seek those efficiencies in cost and preparation. This bill is a product of those efforts. As indicated, we have 3 governing boards, which oftentimes have people, or we have 3 or 4 openings, but the volunteer element of this has been restrictive in the sense that we can't get people to participate and want to serving on these boards. So oftentimes we just get the 3 necessary or the 4 necessary to be elected. And by moving towards SB 54, it's going to save a big amount of money. The senator mentioned the $20,000 is the approximate cost of our last 3 elections. So in the last 2 years, we've spent a total of $120,000 for elections, which we had no more candidates than on the slate. That's a lot of money that should be saved for our residents in our communities, and therefore we ask for your support with regards to SB 54.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Lauren Nolan-Hajic on behalf of the Community Associations Institute, also in support for the reasons stated. We believe that this will save associations a great deal of cost, but also provides the protections to ensure that people are encouraged to run and can run if they want to. So we respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Mr. Chair and members, Jennifer Wada on behalf of the California Association of Community Managers in support for the reasons stated.
Okay, any additional support? Okay, any opposition? Please come forward.
Senator Wiener and members of the committee, I'm Marjorie Murray again, Center for California Homeowner Association Law. As has been mentioned, this is not the first time that this idea has been brought to the legislature. I think this is the fourth or fifth iteration of this idea that acclamation can be the tool for seating board directors. And we have the same objections to this bill as we have had in the past. I want to stress just one point about homeowner associations, which I've also made in our letter, and that is that homeowner associations are not country clubs. They're not neighborhood associations that put on 4th of July picnics. This is another level of government, like a special district or a school board or a city council or a county board of supervisors. In fact, some of their powers exceed those of local governments, the most obvious one being the association's right to foreclose on someone who falls behind on association assessments. Because of their governmental powers, the existing statutes governing association elections are modeled on the California Elections Code, and with good reason, again, because of the powers invested in association boards. One of the arguments that has been put forward for acclamation is that school boards use it, special districts use it, city councils use it. That is an inexact analogy. For one thing, qualifications, again, for school districts and school boards and special districts and so on, those are set by law. Those are set by statute. Whereas in the homeowner association environment, qualifications are set by the incumbents who are already sitting on the board. So this is a huge difference, which my colleague Tom Sir will address in a little bit more detail. A second important difference is that the elections in the public arena are executed by a registrar of voters, a disinterested third party. They are not executed by, again, the incumbents, which is the situation in the homeowner association. So I guess the most important issue here is that as the bill is written, the decision to seat board directors by acclamation is a private one, meaning it's made by the inspector of elections together with the board. There is no opportunity for the electorate to disagree, to object, to demand the election, as they have that right with a school board. So we ask for a no vote on this because of the powers invested in an association board, and because we have cataloged too many instances of individuals putting themselves forward to run for a board, but because the board sets the qualifications, they are too easily dismissed. My colleague Tom Sir will address a couple of other issues here, and one is the cost issue.
Thank you. And again, Tom Sir, I'm on the legislative committee of the center going on 7 years, and so I can tell you that the positions that the center takes on legislation, either in support or in opposition, those positions are based on the information, the complaints, the comments that we receive from homeowners all around the state. And they have brought to our attention repeatedly that in many homeowner associations around the state, and I'm not saying that the sponsor is necessarily one of these, but homeowner associations around the state are often captive of a small group of incumbents who hold on to their power and pass rules and so forth in their favor, and that these abusive practices, it's a continuum that starts with the writing of the rules for how you run an election, and it continues through the implementation, the conduct of the election. And we've heard of such practices as writing qualifications that exclude people who are in opposition and are trying to get onto the board, and they target those people and prevent them from running. So in the face of that, it's ironic to hear that there aren't enough candidates in some of these organizations. These practices are done under the radar so that the membership is often not aware of what is going on. And so this bill, which would allow seating by acclamation, it continues or allows this continuum of abuse to continue, and in fact makes it worse. The language in the bill notes that once the Inspector of Elections determines that the number of nominees is not more than the number of vacancies, the exact language is, the director nominees shall be considered elected by acclamation if the association followed the procedure, the notices. There's not even any indication that the board has to take an action. It just happens. And again, under the radar. So that's what causes us so much concern about this particular proposal. There are a couple of arguments put forth in favor of the bill. One of these is the logic of why hold an election if there aren't enough candidates or as equal candidates as vacancies. And that logic is, I've addressed that in showing that this would be one of a continuum. Another argument is the cost. Now, beginning with the very first bill that was introduced, I think, 4 years ago, the cost pencils out to about $1 per member per election. And those numbers are confirmed. I mean, we had the same bill before you, same sponsor last year. And the figures that are quoted in the analysis are a cost of $60,000, and I believe that was for 3 elections in one particular cycle. And with a membership of 18,500, that pencils out to $1.08 per member to maintain democracy. I don't think that that's too much of a price to pay. The other important distinction is in the public elections arena, the rules are not written by the board that's being elected or the city council, nor is the election conducted by those people. But in this context, it is. And so that's why we think this bill is a dangerous one, and we urge your no vote.
Great. Is there any additional opposition? Okay, seeing none, we'll bring it back to the committee. Any comments or questions? Senator Roth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Obviously, this is not a new issue to me. I guess my question to the opponents is this. I know from the analysis, and I knew from last year, that prior versions of this bill, before I got involved in it, included provisions that the Homeowners Association was required to provide notice to all members at least 20 days before declaring an election uncontested. In other words, hey, homeowners, we've got 5 candidates for 5 vacancies. We're going to declare this uncontested. And that didn't appear to satisfy the opponents to that particular bill by Assemblymember Mays in 2016. So my question is this: is there anything that would remove your opposition to an election by acclamation when the number of candidates equals the number of vacancies?
That was actually our amendment.
Well, the analysis said it did not satisfy the opposition concerns, so.
No, to the Mays bill I'm talking about. That was our amendment.
Well, that's what I'm reading the analysis. That provision, however, did not satisfy opposition concerns. Maybe you weren't the opposition.
Senator Wiener, do you want me to answer that, or?
Yeah, he's asking a question.
Well, what that raises, Senator Roth, is the inherent defect of acclamation, which is there is no opportunity for the membership to object. And even if we're talking about a school board election, and this is in the analysis, there is an opportunity for voters who live in a school board district to get up a petition at a certain level and demand that the election be held. And there's no opportunity for that. There has been no opportunity for that in any versions of the acclamation bills.
Well, then let me re-ask my question, because this, of course, is the Sacramento way, and we see it all the time. Is there anything that could be done to this bill to allow acclamation, from your perspective, where the number of candidates equals the number of vacancies?
I don't think so, because it removes the right to vote from the membership, which is the inherent defect of this approach.
But isn't voting in an election where the number of candidates equals the number of vacancies an idle act?
So
To explain to me how the voting works, is there anything, what are the options at that point for a voter in a homeowners association where the number of candidates equals the number of vacancies?
it's not just number of candidates equals number of vacancies. It's the totality of this approach where you have, which is what we have laid out in our letter, and which I think Aaron has laid out in the analysis, where you have the incumbents establishing the qualifications, where you have the inspector determining that these people are qualified, and the incumbents are also implementing and choosing the inspector and implementing the election. So it's not just a simple, we've got 5 warm bodies to fill 5 vacancies. It's the totality of this process. So it's not just acclamation, it's the whole package.
Thank you for your response, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Additional questions, comments? Okay, seeing none, I don't think do we have a motion? Senator Roth?
I'll move the bill.
Okay. We have a motion, and that is to judiciary. Okay, Senator Morlock, would you like to close?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess we're looking at 2 ways to look at a homeowner's board of directors. One is that there's something wrong with them and they're trying desperately to maintain control and keep others out. And there's the other side where we're just glad people are running and spending an evening a month to meet with the board and listen to the complaints. I've had the pleasure of serving on a homeowners association board. One of the seminars I went to told me that most board presidents move out within a year or 2 after they've served because they've had enough of people calling them in the middle of the night saying, hey, my newspaper's wet or this or that. So it's as local as it gets and it's as frustrating as it is. And so I'm in the school that I'm excited to have people willing to run. And if I had more candidates than positions, that's really great news. But if you have the same amount of candidates or less, then why are we spending the time and effort? You know, I hear the arguments, and if you don't like the fact that there's a single slate, please get people to run, or maybe put up the money to pay for the mailing if you have the 20,000, or maybe we ought to step back and say, okay, for communities that are serving individuals that are 55 and older, like Laguna Woods, maybe they should be exempted. But for crying out loud, I guess I would say, you know, homeowners, your adults know the filing period, know the rules, and file on time. We have to be aware of critical dates in our lives, like April 15, April 10, December 10. We got to pay our property taxes. We got to do our thing, or we have penalties. So I see nothing here that's under the radar. And if you don't like the results of this election, you've got another one in a year or 2, and you ramp up and get people involved. So with that, Mr. Chair, I think we owe a lot of associations a little relief here, and I respectfully ask for an aye vote on SB 754.
Okay, the bill has been moved, and we will call the roll.
This is Senate Bill 754 by Senator Morlock. The motion is due pass and re-refer to the Committee on Judiciary. Senator Wiener.
Aye.
Wiener, aye. Morel.
Aye.
Morel, aye. Bates. Aye. Bates, aye. Caballero. Aye. Cavero, aye. Durazo. McGuire. Morlock.
Aye.
Morlock, aye. Roth.
Aye.
Roth, aye. Skinner. Umberg. Umberg, aye. Bukowski.
Okay, the vote is 7-0. We'll keep the roll open for absent members.